She said, "Men like you bore me." His single reply left her crying in public. Framework notes, villain architecture, primary. Cassandra Whitmore, 48, divorce attorney turned socialite. Defines men by salary, social circles, and square footage. Her signature move, dismissing men with public mockery so her friends hear it. Karma, loses her most prestigious client referral network when word spreads. Secondary, Philip Ashworth, 51, Cassandra's married into wealth boyfriend. Enables her cruelty with chuckles and eye rolls. Karma, the same dismissiveness gets turned back on him when his deal falls apart. Protagonist, Marcus Webb, 42, single dad to his 9-year-old daughter Nora, widower, left his career as a senior architect at a firm he co-founded to raise her full-time. Drives a 12-year-old Subaru. Wears a plain watch. Looks like someone's neighbor. Love interest, Claire Denton, 38, single mom. Works as a public school librarian. Has been quietly attending the same charity silent auction circuit every year because she believes in the causes, not the crowd. 6 engagement spikes plus 4 CTAs mapped in place. They snickered the moment he walked in. Cassandra Whitmore whispered it to Philip loud enough that the 2 women standing beside them heard it too. Oh no. They let the landscapers in this year. Philip laughed into his glass. The women followed a half-second later. Marcus Webb stood at the entrance of the Hartwell Hotel's grand ballroom with his hands in the pockets of a blazer that didn't quite match the occasion, because it wasn't bought for the occasion. He'd worn it to Nora's school recital 3 years ago. He was holding a single auction paddle and looking at the room the way a man looks at a place he's only heard described, carefully, without expectation, trying to find something worth staying for. The Hartwell Charity Gala was the kind of event where wealth didn't announce itself. It didn't need to. It was present in the posture of every person in the room, in the way they moved through space as though it already belonged to them. Cassandra Whitmore had been coming to this event for 9 years. She'd chaired 2 committees. Her name was on a plaque near the restrooms in the East Wing. She wore a $4,200 gown and a smile that said she'd earned the right to decide who belonged here and who didn't. Marcus Webb did not look like he belonged here. What Cassandra didn't know, what none of them could have known from looking at him, was that the man she'd just compared to a landscaper had designed 3 of the buildings currently hosting this city's highest-profile galas. His firm's work was cited in Architectural Digest twice in the last 5 years. He'd sold his equity stake 18 months ago for more money than Cassandra would see in her lifetime. He hadn't come to impress anyone. He'd come because Nora had asked him to bid on a children's art program. She'd read about it online and printed out the page and taped it to the refrigerator. He was going to bid on it. Then he was going home. But that's not what happened. 3 hours earlier, Marcus had been making dinner. Nora sat at the kitchen counter with her sketchbook open, her pencil making small, careful strokes across the page. She was drawing a building. She always drew buildings. Tall ones. Short ones. Imaginary ones with impossible angles that somehow still looked like they'd stand. "Dad," she said, without looking up. "Yeah, are you going to the auction thing tonight?" "That's the plan." She turned the sketchbook so he could see. A tower with a curved glass front and a rooftop garden that spilled green down 2 of the sides. "Can you bid on the art program? The one for the kids who can't afford supplies?" He looked at the drawing for a moment. She was 9. She'd taught herself most of what she knew from YouTube tutorials and library books and her own quiet persistence. Her mother had been the same way, already planning on it, he said. She turned the sketchbook back. "Good, a pause. Can you also not embarrass me? I'll do my best." She considered this. "That's not reassuring, Dad," he'd laughed. He'd put on the recital blazer. He'd kissed the top of her head and left her with his neighbor, Mrs. Albrecht, who brought over a tin of cookies every time she came and insisted Marcus was too thin. He found his table near the side of the room, close enough to the silent auction boards to see the bid sheets clearly, and far enough from the chandeliers that he felt slightly less underdressed. The name card beside his read Claire Denton. The seat was empty. He ordered water from a passing server and studied the items on the auction boards. The children's art program was listed at a starting bid of $400. Someone had already placed a bid for $600. He wrote $750 and moved on. He was reviewing the remaining items when he heard the voice. "Is this seat taken?" He turned. She was carrying her own auction paddle and wearing a dark green dress that looked like she'd chosen it because she liked it, not because it would impress anyone. She had the kind of face that seemed to be thinking something even when it was still. "Claire Denton," she said, holding out her hand. "Marcus Webb." She sat down, set her paddle on the table, and glanced at the auction boards. "Did you bid on the art program yet?" "Just did. $750. She looked pleased in a specific way, like the right answer had been given without prompting. "Good. I've been watching that one." He almost asked why. Caught himself. Something about the way she said watching made him think it wasn't casual. What Marcus didn't know was that Claire had been quietly funding a branch of that same program herself for 3 years, anonymously, because she was a school librarian who knew exactly which kids showed up on Mondays looking like the weekend had happened to them. He'd find that out later. But for now, she just ordered water too, and they sat there in the comfortable quiet of two people who hadn't yet decided to be interesting to each other. That was when Cassandra arrived. She moved through the room like someone conducting an inspection she'd already passed. Philip trailed slightly behind her, his hand finding her shoulder at irregular intervals. They stopped at several tables to exchange the kind of greetings that looked like warmth and functioned as inventory taking. Then she found Marcus and Claire's table. "Claire," she said, with the particular warmth of a woman who doesn't quite like you, but has decided you're useful. She turned to Marcus. Her eyes ran over him once, the blazer, the plain watch, the way he sat like a man who didn't need to be seen. "I don't think we've met." Marcus Webb. Cassandra Whitmore. She didn't extend her hand. "And what do you do, Marcus?" He considered this for exactly half a second. "I spend a lot of time with my daughter." Cassandra's smile didn't move, but something behind it did. How wholesome. She turned back to Claire. "You two came together?" "We sat next to each other," Claire said. Cassandra nodded slowly, the way a person nods when they're filing information away for later. "Well, enjoy the evening." She looked at Marcus one more time, something between pity and amusement. "Both of you." She walked away. "Does she chair a committee here?" Marcus asked. "2 of them," Claire said. "Does she chair them the same way she runs conversations?" Claire pressed her lips together. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. "You're perceptive. I design spaces. You learn to read rooms." She looked at him differently after that. Not more impressed, more curious. "You're an architect?" Mostly I just design one room now. Nora's bedroom. She keeps changing her mind." "Nora's your daughter?" "She is." "How old?" 9. Very opinionated about hexagonal shelving. This time Claire actually smiled. It changed the whole shape of her face. "My son just turned 10. He'd like to know where hexagonal shelving fits in the rotation. He's currently in his everything should be a different color phase." Nora went through that. She came out the other side believing everything should be exactly the right color. Only one right color per object. There's a system. Is the system documented? Laminated, hanging in the bathroom where she can reference it while brushing her teeth. They were still talking when Cassandra came back. She had Margaret Hale with her now, another committee member, large earrings, practiced disapproval, and two other women whose names Marcus never got. They approached the table with the confidence of people who've decided something is going to happen and are just here to watch it go. "Marcus," Cassandra said, pleasantly, "my friends were asking about you. We couldn't quite figure out where we'd seen you before." He looked up. Claire had gone still beside him. "I don't think you have," he said. "Are you sure? Your face is so familiar." A pause. She was enjoying this. Maybe from the community tables? The open-door events they hold on the third Saturday? It was said with the precision of someone who knows exactly what they're doing. The community events were free, held for people who couldn't afford the ticket price. She had not said this, but she had said it. Marcus picked up his water glass, took a slow drink, set it back down. The table was watching him, waiting to see if he'd deflect or shrink or apologize for being there. He looked at Cassandra. "I'm sure," he said. "We haven't met." She waited for something else. An explanation, a justification, something. He didn't provide one. Cassandra's smile shifted from amusement to something colder. Margaret whispered something near her ear. One of the other women glanced at Philip, who had appeared at the edge of the group and was watching with the detached interest of someone waiting to be entertained. "Well," Cassandra said, "it's a wonderful event, isn't it? For all kinds of people." She let all kinds sit in the air for a moment. Then she moved away. Philip caught Marcus's eye as he turned to follow her, gave a small, apologetic shrug that was somehow worse than anything Cassandra had said. "What can you do? That's just how she is." Marcus watched them go. "I'm sorry," Claire said quietly. "Don't be. She does that. She has a radar for anyone she doesn't recognize, and it's all right," Marcus said. He wasn't angry. He looked more like a man who had just observed something interesting. A beam that wasn't load-bearing. A room that looked stable and wasn't. "She's not the first person to do the math on me and get a wrong answer." What he didn't say was that he was used to it. That in the 18 months since leaving the firm, since trading the corner office and the suit and the professional identity for school pickups and dinner and the slow, particular work of being actually present for a 9-year-old who needed him, he'd become invisible to a certain kind of person. And that he'd stopped minding. Mostly, what Claire didn't say was that she'd watched him very carefully during what just happened, and that the thing she'd seen on his face, not defensiveness, not embarrassment, just a quiet and complete lack of need for Cassandra Whitmore's approval, was the most attractive thing she'd witnessed in a long time. The auction ended. The results were announced from a small lectern near the east wall. The children's art program, highest bid, $2,400. Marcus Webb. He'd gone back to the board twice without saying anything about it. Claire had watched him. She hadn't commented. But when his name was read, she looked at him with the expression of someone revising a calculation. "You went back," she said. "Nora would have wanted me to. You bid $2,400 on an art program for kids who can't afford supplies because your 9-year-old printed out a page and taped it to the refrigerator. She also laminated it. With a label maker, I feel it's important to include that detail." Claire was quiet for a moment. Outside, through the tall windows, the city was doing its usual late evening thing. Lights moving. Someone leaving early. "My son's name is Henry," she said. "He's terrible at art and loves it anyway. He's been in that program for 2 years." She kept her eyes on the window. "I didn't know how to say that earlier." Marcus put down his paddle. You fund it. It wasn't a question. Something in how she'd said watching 2 hours ago had just resolved itself. Anonymously, she said. For 3 years. Because I know the kids in that program. Some of them, she stopped. Some of them just need one thing that's theirs. He nodded. She finally looked at him. I should have just said that at the beginning. I'm glad you didn't, he said. This was a better conversation. They were still at the table when Cassandra found them one last time. She had the particular energy of someone who has been circling back to a thought all evening and finally decided to say it. Philip was with her, plus Margaret, and a man named Gerald, who looked important and wasn't. Still here? Cassandra said to Marcus, with the brightness of someone who finds the continued existence of a problem mildly amusing. Apparently, I heard you won the art bid. Generous, she sat down, uninvited, in a chair across the table. You still haven't told me what you do. I told you. I spend time with my daughter. She tilted her head. It was a practiced gesture, the kind that says I'm being patient with you. For work, Marcus. He looked at her for a moment. The whole table was listening. Margaret was leaning forward almost imperceptibly. Philip had his arms crossed and the smile of a man who expects to be entertained. I used to design buildings, Marcus said. I left to raise my daughter. Now I do both, less professionally. Buildings, Cassandra repeated. So you're a contractor, architect-o, the same tone she'd use if he'd said mailman. Commercial? Mostly. Some residential. We had a few high-profile commissions. He paused. The Hartwell Annex was one of ours. A beat. Cassandra glanced up involuntarily, at the ceiling, at the walls, at the room they were sitting in. The Hartwell Hotel, the grand ballroom where she had stood on a committee stage twice and accepted thank you plaques and had her name put near the restrooms in the East Wing. Margaret went very still. Gerald, who had been half listening, turned fully toward the table for the first time. You designed this building, Cassandra said. The annex. The original structure predates us. We did the East Wing renovation and the ballroom expansion. He looked at her with the expression of a man who is not enjoying this, exactly, but isn't uncomfortable either. The plaque is near the restrooms. In the East Wing. The silence lasted about 4 seconds. It felt longer. Cassandra's mouth opened. Closed, Philip had gone completely still, his glass no longer moving. Margaret was looking at the floor. Cassandra started. I had no idea. No, Marcus said. Not unkindly, not cruelly. Just no. You made that decision quickly. Gerald cleared his throat. Marcus Webb. You're Webb from Webb Andover. Formerly, I sold my equity stake when my wife passed, 18 months ago. Gerald straightened. I'm on the acquisitions board for the Hartwell Group. We've been trying to reach Webb Andover for a retrospective feature on the East Wing restoration. This is? He reached into his jacket for a card. This is extraordinary. Cassandra had not moved. Her face had done something complicated and quiet. The specific expression of a person who realizes, too late, that the verdict they delivered at the beginning of the evening is going to have to be appealed in front of witnesses, and that the court is not sympathetic. Philip said, Cass. She stood. Excuse me. She walked toward the far end of the ballroom with the measured pace of someone who will not run. Marcus watched her go. He didn't feel triumphant. That was the strange thing. He felt the same way he'd felt all evening, like a man who'd come to bid on an art program for his daughter and somehow ended up in the middle of something else entirely. He looked at Claire. She was looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Not impressed. Not pitying. Something more like, "I see you." All of it. "Are you going to be okay?" Claire asked. "I was always okay," he said. "I know. I mean," she looked toward where Cassandra had gone. "This will follow her." People saw. People always see. Usually they see what they expect to. She considered this. "Is that why you didn't say anything at the beginning about the building?" It wasn't relevant. It was a little relevant. "It's always relevant if what you're trying to do is win," he said. "I wasn't trying to win. I was trying to have dinner and bid on the art program and get home before Nora checked the timestamp on my texts." Something crossed Claire's face. She looked down at the table. When she looked back up, her eyes were bright in a way they hadn't been 30 seconds ago. "She checks your timestamps? She has a spreadsheet. She says it's a data project. It is a surveillance operation." Claire laughed. It was a real laugh, the kind that doesn't plan itself. It came out before she could decide whether the moment was right for it. A few people at nearby tables looked over. She covered her mouth. "Sorry," she said. "Don't be," he said. "It's the right reaction." Gerald found Marcus near the coat check 20 minutes later. They talked for 11 minutes. Marcus gave him a card, the old firm card, the only ones he still carried, because Nora had found them in a drawer and asked what they were, and he'd explained, and she'd made him promise not to throw them away. "Their history, Dad. Gerald said he'd be in touch." He looked like he meant it. Marcus found Claire still at their table, her coat over her arm. "I should go," she said. "Henry's with my mother, and if I'm not back by 10, she starts texting me about how difficult I'm making things. Nora's with my neighbor. She brought cookies." "That's better." It usually is. They stood for a moment in the particular awkwardness of two people who have had an unexpectedly good evening and don't quite know what to do with that. "The art program," Claire said. "Henry goes on Tuesday afternoons. If you ever wanted to," she stopped. "If Nora ever wanted to see what it looks like, in person." Marcus looked at her. "Or we could just get coffee," she said. "That's also an option." "Coffee," he said. "Yes," she nodded. Handed him her card. It was a library card, an actual physical library card from the school where she worked, with her contact information printed on the back in small, careful type. He looked at it. Looked at her. "Efficient," he said. "I work with children. You get good at having things ready." He tucked it into the pocket of the recital blazer. "Tuesday," he said, "for coffee. If that works." "It works." She left. He stood there for a moment, watching the room, the chandelier light, the auction boards being taken down, the white tablecloths being gathered by the catering staff. The east wing on his left. The plaque near the restrooms he'd walked past on the way in without stopping. He pulled out his phone. Typed a message to Mrs. Albrecht, heading home. 20 minutes. 3 dots. Then, she's asleep on the couch. Take your time. We're fine. He stood there another minute, not thinking about Cassandra Whitmore, not thinking about Gerald or the Hartwell Group or the old firm card in his pocket alongside Claire's library card. Just thinking about Nora's drawing, still taped to his dashboard. The tower with the rooftop garden, the green spilling down the sides. She'd drawn it because she'd seen a building like it in a book. He knew which book. He'd given it to her for her birthday. It was a coffee table collection of architectural photographs, too heavy for her to carry with one hand. She'd been dragging it around the house ever since. He put on his coat. He went home. By the following Wednesday, the story had moved through the gala circuit the way stories always do. Not in one announcement, but in the accumulated weight of several conversations that all somehow began with the same moment. A man at the East Wing table. The architect. The plaque near the restrooms. Cassandra Whitmore's name was on a plaque near those restrooms, too. That week, 2 people she'd been hoping to bring onto her client referral network sent polite but final messages declining. One of them, someone she'd been cultivating for almost a year, said only that he'd heard things, and that he preferred to keep his network aligned with people who led with character. He didn't elaborate. He didn't have to. Margaret Hale stopped returning her calls on Thursday. By Friday, the invitations to the committee planning sessions had gone quiet in a way that wasn't accidental. Cassandra left 2 voicemails for the events coordinator. Different messages, same underlying question. Neither was returned. She did not try to contact Marcus. Philip, meanwhile, had been trying to close a commercial lease deal with a firm that had overlapping connections to Webb Andover's former client roster. By Thursday, the deal was cold. By Friday, it was over. No explanation given. He didn't ask Gerald. He knew Gerald had been at the table. He didn't mention any of this to Cassandra. Some silences are just the sound of a person sitting with what they've built. 6 weeks later, Marcus was in the school library's back reading room with Nora and Henry, both of whom had been given a pile of architecture books and told they could look at anything they wanted, which turned out to be everything. Nora had found a photograph of a building in Sao Paulo with a cantilevered upper floor that seemed to defy the idea of weight. "Dad," she said, not looking up, "can a floor just float? Not literally, but you can make it look like it does." "How?" he explained. Henry listened with his chin on his fist, skeptically, and then asked a clarifying question that was better than most questions Marcus had received from clients. Claire, across the table, mouthed, "He does this." Marcus mouthed back, "Does what?" "Asks the right question at the worst time." He laughed. Nora looked up, suspicious. Henry turned a page. They stayed until the library closed. In the parking lot, the kids ran ahead to find whose car was parked closer, a competition with unclear rules and stakes that had apparently been established between them without adult input. "Tuesday was good," Claire said, not quite looking at him. It was. "Next week? Same place? Different place," she said. "There's a bakery near the school that opens at 7:30 and takes a very generous interpretation of what constitutes a breakfast item." "That sounds correct." "It is. They have a thing that's technically a pastry, but is the size of a plate. Nora would like it." He looked at her. "Are we scheduling a second coffee or a third thing?" "We're scheduling whatever this is," she said. "I don't think it has a name yet." He considered it. "That's fine. Nora can name it. She's good at systems." Across the parking lot, Nora and Henry were arguing, apparently good-naturedly, about something that required a lot of pointing at the sky. "She is," Claire said. "He'll adopt whatever system she proposes within 20 minutes. "How do you know?" "Because he respects competence. Always has. Even when it's inconvenient." Marcus looked at her. "He gets it from somewhere," she said simply. That night, Marcus made dinner late, pasta, the kind that doesn't require much thought, the kind Nora called the reliable one. She sat at the counter with her sketchbook. "Dad, yeah, I like Henry." "Good," she considered. "And Claire seems nice." "She is. She asked me what I was drawing. Most people just say, 'Wow, very good.'" "What did she say?" Nora thought about it. She asked if the rooftop was load-bearing or decorative. A pause. "I didn't know what load-bearing meant, so she explained it. And then I told her it was structural but also symbolic." Marcus stopped stirring. "You said structural but also symbolic?" "I said it after she explained load-bearing. It made sense at the time." He stood there for a second. Dad? Yeah, is she going to come to the Tuesday thing again? I think so. Nora nodded once, satisfied, and turned back to her sketchbook. The pencil made its small, careful strokes. The building she was drawing had a cantilevered floor that shouldn't have worked. It was going to work. He could already see it. Outside, it had started to rain. Inside, warm, quiet, the two of them, the pasta, and whatever came next. Some things don't need to be named to be real. Sometimes you just keep showing up, one careful Tuesday at a time, until it becomes the only floor that matters.